Thank you all for coming to this, our first clinic for the new Sporting Clubs and Sporting Winners investment. For those who don't know, my name's Alan Curran and I'm the Performance Systems Manager within Sport NI, and then there's various members of our team within Performance here today who will hopefully assist me in answering any queries that you may have. New investment is now live and expressions of interest are open, and thank you to you all for expressing your interest in the programme and then registering for today's clinic. The clinics, I suppose, are a way of us interacting with any applicants out there and answering any queries that they may have. If we can't answer the query today, we'll take it away and then we'll answer it via the FAQs, frequently answered questions, on the website. We will also put up all the questions that are asked today on the FAQs, just from an equity point of view, to make sure that all applicants are receiving the same information. And that's why we've opted for these clinics rather than having one-to-ones with sports and stuff, because this programme is slightly different in that it has been opened to all 80 recognised sports, along with some umbrella organisations as well. So we have to then be seen to give the same information out as we progress through the application process. Okay. In terms of, you will probably have seen this timeline within the guidance document. So the programme was launched on the 14th of June. We're now in the period around sort of the clinics and the briefing sessions, which will run right through. And they'll run in a similar format to this, although slightly different for some. The plan moving forward would be that 12 o'clock will be a webinar, so online, and then 3 o'clock will be a session such as this, and then 6:30, I think will again be a session such as this in the evening time. The only difference will be in the session that takes place in Dublin, where 12 and 3 o'clock will both be sort of workshop sessions such as this. Okay, deadline for submissions is then 4 p.m. on Friday the 2nd of September. So the total duration is 12 weeks of the application process. From that point then, assessment of submissions will take place from the 5th of September right through the 14th of December. All the guys within the team are involved in that submission process, so that's another reason for us having the clinics, in terms of we can't be seen to help in one organisation more than another, because the guys then have a conflict of interest whenever they're coming to assess the applications that come in on the 2nd of September. Decisions then will be communicated to applicant organisations on the 19th of December following the Sport NI board meeting in December. So we will go to the board twice in November and December, December being then final decisions around awards, and then communicate that out to those successful and unsuccessful applicants on the 19th of December. That then leaves us with I suppose January, February and March with those successful applicants to put in place their partnership agreements, establish their KPIs and targets for that first year as per the submission document that has been placed, whether it be for sporting clubs or sporting winners. Organisations don't have to apply for both sporting clubs and sporting winners. They can apply for either or both if they so wish. They just have to provide the evidence that there's a need within their sport. This investment is really about you telling us where your sport needs to be and how you envisage it getting there, whether it be through sporting clubs and sporting winners, while at the same time ensuring that you're meeting the requirements around effective organisations.
Yeah, effective organisations, really it's a continuation of a journey. Through the last two funding programmes, we've looked very closely, firstly modernisation and then governance, and we've been building those standards across each of the organisations we've been working with over those 8 years. So suppose the sort of standards now completely different to where they were 8 years ago, and we're looking to continuing to build on that, you know, with governance being quite high on the agenda. In terms of the effective organisation section, that is the one section that every governing body, whether they're applying for clubs or winners or both, will have to make a submission under effective organisations. Really, it's just been developed to allow organisations to show how you're going to continue to operate effectively and to build that effectiveness over the 4 years. Now, it's not a strategic objective, so really what you have to be doing is showing how having an effective organisation is going to impact on the outcomes of clubs and or winners. So there's 3 elements in terms of the submission generally. The eligibility criteria, which I'll go through in a minute, that's really a gateway. If you don't have some of these documents in place, we won't even assess your application. Sport NI expectations is a host of elements that we would expect an organisation to either have in place now or develop over the course of the 4 years. They are all on the application form. Go into them in a bit more detail in a minute. And for any organisation that comes seeking specific resource around effective organisations, we would have a further expectation that they would do a bit more than just the listed expectations. They would be showing how you would be adding value and again how that would tie into the strategic objectives. So the application form, get to the exciting bit, there are 7 sections. It's not just as bad as it sounds. So really section 1, don't need to say anything, put in your details. Section 2 is the eligibility requirements that we would be looking for. So I will bring those up just now. That is kind of what you would have to have in place. Now, these things are in line with the governing body recognition policy. So for any governing body to be recognised across the UK and Northern Ireland, you have to have these things anyway. They're minimum standards, so the expectation is they're all there. Section 3 is a bit about the track record. So what you need to consider is what you've done over the last 4 years. If you have been in receipt of performance focus investment, it would be showing how you've achieved the KPIs across that programme. If you haven't been in receipt of that or you haven't done anything, really just an outline of what your organisation has done in terms of developing its governance, developing its structures, etc. So it's really a high-level summary of the progress you've made in the last 4 years. Section 4, this is probably the larger section. So we will have a whole host of questions around here, a whole load of expectations, things that we feel you should have in place. Now, they are all grouped within the application form in line with the Code of Good Governance. So these aren't things that we've just pulled out of a hat saying, you know, it'd be nice for an organisation to have. We're tying them into the Code of Good Governance, which is there, and it's also on the pop-up. And everything that we're asking you to do will be grouped sort of under one of these principles. One of the key things we also ask you to do is actually sign up to a Code of Good Governance. Now, why I say a code and not the code is because there's a Northern Ireland Code, an Ireland Code, and there's a UK Code in development. So it may be, now they're all fairly consistent, but it may be that it's appropriate for your organisation to sign up to one specific, i.e. the Ireland one, if you're an all-Ireland governing body. So the expectations are there. You'll see them on the application form. We would expect every governing body to achieve every single one of them over the 4-year period. Now, it may be that you look at some and think it's not appropriate for your organisation, you know, due to the size or the nature of your organisation. So we will add that element of flexibility. So it's either, you know, you will achieve it or you will explain a rationale as to why you don't feel it's appropriate. So there is a sort of comply or explain element in there. Also, when you're filling out the form, just one wee pointer is to think about prioritisation and think about genuine timescales. If you're looking to implement some form of policy that we're asking, you don't have it in place, it may be that it has to go through your AGM. So consider all those sorts of things that, you know, you maybe can't do it overnight. So don't come to us and say we're going to do everything you're asking for in year 1. You know, be a wee bit realistic around these. If you're telling us you already have things in place, which the chances are most of you will have a good percentage of the expectations, we will be looking for some evidence to provide it. Now, it may sound laborious, however, if you've already got it in place, you should be able to just pull it out and pass stuff on. So we don't expect you to come to us, tell us you've got something, and then go through the process of developing it pretty quickly. So that's section 4. So that's the key section in terms of where we are. Section 5, your financial position. We're looking very much at financial viability and financial sustainability. We're asking for both some historical figures and some figures going forwards. We've got a finance officer or finance manager within our team who will do most of the assessment around this. And it may feed in to some of your future objectives and terms and conditions. So in terms of sustainability, if we feel you're a little bit reliant on public funding, we may set you targets to reduce the percentage of reliance, which isn't to say we'll cut your funding and give you less, but it may be we'll expect you to have more diverse and increased income streams in and around the funding that's going. Section 6, now this is a bit of a narrative section. It's very open to each organisation. It's probably the most open box in there. How are you going to achieve the expectations and improving your organisation's effectiveness? So really just tell us what you're going to do. For some organisations it may be through employed staff, for others it may be the board, it may be committees, but just tell us what you're going to do over the 4 years and how you intend to do it, and give us as much information of the resources you're going to apply. And then section 7, the final one, what do you need from us to get there? Now, not every governing body is going to be asking for funding and support in terms of governance, so you don't need to fill out this section if you're not asking for specific support. So don't feel you have to fill it out if you don't need it. That's really the sort of message there. If you are asking for a bit of support there, be mindful that you have to show the added value and how getting support through effective organisations is going to tie into sporting clubs and sporting winners' objectives, and that's key. So what we're going to do, we'll assess each of these sections, and it's not necessarily, except for any resource requested, it's not all going to be about making a finance decision. So it's not going to be the better your organisation looking now, the more we're going to fund you. It's not quite as simple. The finance decisions are going to be more based on your clubs and winners' submissions. However, we will RAG rate each organisation. So we may find an organisation who's putting forward a fantastic case for sporting clubs investment. Their governance and effectiveness is a bit weak. Well, we'll put in some terms and conditions or some objectives around that, and because it maybe poses a higher risk to us. But those are the 4 key areas that we will sort of RAG rate for your organisation. Corporate governance is as it says, it's purely about your policies, procedures, all the exciting stuff that you could have in place. Governance of your sport is more related to anti-doping, child protection, equality and selection policies, stuff like that. So what policies do you have around sporting decisions? Performance management, it's about how you sort of set your objectives, set your strategy, then how you monitor that and report back and look at your own performance both individually and collectively. And then financial viability and sustainability, exactly what it says on the tin, I suppose. It's what does your organisation look like financially?
Sporting clubs, I suppose, our new corporate plan gave us the opportunity this time in terms of investment to have separation in terms of the clubs and the winners. The last time, I suppose, through performance focus, while there still was the elements around sort of club development and coaching, the overall objectives and benefits and KPIs were very much focused around medals and success at international competition. This time, through having sporting clubs and winners, the sporting clubs element gives us the opportunity to focus on clubs and how you move them forward within your sport, and also the workforce that assists you to do that. So in terms of sporting clubs objective, it's about enabling more people to develop and reach their sporting goals through a structured environment. And then specifically within the corporate plan, really we're trying to hit home through this investment on priority for action 3, which is about the sporting workforce to enable sports clubs to develop and deliver quality sporting experiences so that people can enjoy and sustain a sporting lifestyle. So that's the objective and I suppose the priority for action that we're trying to hit through sporting clubs. And trying to achieve that, I suppose, through the 4 Ps of partnership, places, people and planning. So I suppose the key things coming out from the guidance document are really about sort of the application of the principles and the measurements that we then associate with that. So on the left-hand side here, in terms of the applied principles, you'll see the bits in bold, I suppose, are the key things we're talking about there in terms of the clubs and the workforce. So club members, the quality of sports clubs, coaching population, club volunteer population, and the official population. Some of these have evolved through the consultation because of our interaction with you guys and with others around discussions in terms of what the early investment looked like compared to what it looks like now. So I suppose one of the key developments here is around the official population, because quite a lot of governing bodies felt that that was something that was a particular focus for them moving forwards in terms of developing that population within their sport. So I suppose it's the application of these principles that then ties it back to our corporate plan. So while we're very much focused on where you need to be and you telling us where your sport is going by 2021, there still is that need at some stage to link that back into our corporate plan and the objectives and the priority for actions that we have to meet. The measurements then on the right hand side there, again relating I suppose to the applied principles. So things that we believe you should know about your sports, in terms of the total number, number of club members, number of new club members. Moving on down then in terms of club mark, the number of clubs achieving accreditation, number achieving re-accreditation, because we see that as a valuable process moving forward. It's not just about getting them accredited, but it's how do we keep assisting them to maintain that accreditation. Moving then down into the coaching population, the number of active and skilled, qualified coaches and coach developers, and then number engaged annually in sport-led formal coach education, and then moving down into the active and skilled volunteers and a number of those in sport-led education as well, and similarly with the officials. So in terms of sporting clubs, what does our submission look like? Well, I suppose the important bit is your strategic plan and where that sits at the minute. We are aware that strategic plans will sit at various stages. Some may be in draft format, some may be coming to the end of their lifeline, others could be right in the middle or right at the start. So it's wherever your plan is at the minute. If it's in draft, it's how it's got to that draft stage is probably as important to us, in terms of what consultation, etc., has been carried out. If, I suppose, in terms of here, one of the questions may be around alignment and national alignment. If you are part of a GB UK structure or an All Ireland structure, we would be looking to see here your national strategy as well as then your regional strategy that may be for your Ulster branch. The reason in that is we want to make sure you're developing how your sport has an idea of your development. You're not developing in isolation. So we want to see the linkages that exist there as well. And that will all come out, I suppose. We want this document submitted, but we want you then to pull some of the information out of it here and put it into the submission template. And that's why we've went with a submission template. Yes, it is quite detailed. It's, we've got it down to 20 pages. But it can be as detailed as you want it to be whenever you're submitting it to us. It's really about you telling us where your sport is and where it's going, and how you plan to get there. So there's 5 sections within the submission template. First one, key achievements and track record of delivery. Really, they're just telling us what you have been doing over the last sort of 3 years, and what you have achieved. If you've had performance-focused investment, what have you done with it? What targets have you met within performance view? In terms of your KPIs and different things, and then the overall targets that you may have met in relation to coaching and club development. Okay, then where are you now and where are you going? So really just trying to establish some baselines here and targets for where you want the sport to be. We understand here, some sports will have an awful lot of information here, other sports may not have. give us the information that you do have, I suppose, is the best avenue there in terms of tell us where you are now, but also in this section then tell us where you want to be in terms of your targets. Where do you want to go? The strategic fit of sporting clubs to the applied principles. So this is really telling us where you want to be by 2021, but relating it back to the 5 areas in terms of the applied principles here on the left-hand side, and telling us how that links into your strategy. So within that, I'm sure you've all looked at the templates already, but within that section then there's a specific box to tell us where are you referencing this from in your strategy. The reason behind that is pure and simple. My guys are going to have a lot of these to look at whenever they come in September. I want them to be able to look at that. It says what page it's on in your strategy or what section it's in. They can go and reference it and it's done straight away rather than them having to read all the strategies, etc. that come in. How will you get there is really the quality of annual operational plans. So there's 2 sections that there's operational plans for year 1 and year 2 and then years 3 and year 4. We expect years 1 and 2 to be more detailed than years 3 and 4 because obviously what happens in years 1 and 2 will have an impact in terms of years 3 and 4. So it'll probably be quite top heavy in terms of what comes in years 1 and 2. And then what do you need to get there? So what is the resource requirement from yourselves in terms of how much money are you looking from us, how much money are you bringing to the table yourself for these posts, these programmes, and have you any other partnership funding? And I think that partnership is one of the 4 P's that we said, so it's throughout evidence and what partnership approaches are you taking to your delivery. The last one then is just supporting documents, any supporting documents that you feel are important that back up your submission. We don't want things just for the sake of having them. There needs to be a relevance, and we would need it referenced somewhere within your submission. Please see attached, document X, page 23 or whatever it may be on it. So again, giving the people who are assessing it the opportunity to see why it's included. Scoring then, we have weighted each of the sections just in terms of, I suppose, giving a wee bit of different levels to each of the sections. So section 1 has a weighting of 1, 2 is 1.5, 3, 2.5, and 4, 3.5, and then 5, 1.5. And then the ratings within each area go from on a 0 to 10 scale. Okay. Some of the things that have come out, I suppose, in terms of consultation are key queries, and we've answered some of those in sort of the further notes section on the guidance document. Active clubs will run until 2019. There is no active clubs 2 after that. This investment will be the opportunity for an extension of those positions for a further 2 years if you deem them necessary. And I think what we're saying that you have to evidence the need for the continuation of those posts within your submission, and what you would do with those posts, from 19 to 21, that you may do differently than they do now. But there is also that option you may put in within your submission for that period 17 to 19. You may want them to do something slightly different in that time frame that might change what they do specifically currently for active clubs at the minute, just dependent. Again, we're not trying to lead you in any direction here, it's your submission. So we're just saying active clubs won't continue as is at the minute post 2019. If you want to continue it, it's through this investment for a further 2 years. Multiple posts then, and I think this query is, I suppose, came in because people maybe have a number of posts within the existing funding of performance focus, or they may have performance focus and active clubs posts. If you deem that you need multiple posts, it's really about providing the evidence base within your submission. And and that's really it in fine detail. You know, if you feel that there's a need for multiple posts, show us the evidence within your submission for those multiple posts. Okay, and then submission detail. So the nice scenario would be that on the 2nd of September, you submit everything and we don't have to come back for any clarification. We won't be coming back for simple points of or we won't be coming back for detailed points of clarification. It will be minor things that we may want clarified. We won't come out for like a lot more detail at that point. So 2nd September is really the cutoff to make sure that you have everything that you feel needs to be in with your submission, or needs to be detailed within your submission.
I suppose just to pick up on some of what has been said already, like we've been trying through this process to listen to sports and preempt what sports needs are, looking at the work that's gone on through Performance Focus, the work that's happening on an annual basis through the Athlete Investment Programme, AIP, and also the work that has gone on within the Sports Institute, because Sporting Winners is really amalgamating those three programmes and is the key investment vehicle for the Sporting Winners corporate objective within Sport Northern Ireland. So this should be fun. Our submission really has got two key components. There is a strategic proposal and then a series of templates. Now, hopefully most of you have tried to go through the guidance document. You've got as far as the Sporting Winners part of it. But the strategic proposal, like a commitment was made in this slightly larger room in January to say that really we want to be guided by the sports strategy. But what we recognise is that, and Alan's already alluded to this, a sports strategy to one person is completely different to another sport. And so some sports will have a fantastic strategy that will exactly meet the needs of this programme. It'll be based on the next 4 years, it'll be quite detailed, it'll give good guidance on what you want to do. But in truth, we expect those sorts of strategies to be few and far between. In truth, you may have a strategy that is halfway through, you may have a strategy that's just ending, and many sports won't have a strategy at all. Or you may be a sport that has, their strategy is some sort of vision document that says, over the next 10 years, we want to win our first World Championship medal. That, as a useful document to guide what you do over the next 4 years, is really pretty much useless. And so what we recognise is that if you have a strategy for your sport relevant to Sporting Winners, include it. But it's probably also necessary that you build some sort of proposal, a strategic document to sit alongside that to fill in the gaps. And so that's what we envisage a strategic proposal being, your strategy and then some document to fill the gaps that wouldn't otherwise be included within the strategy that you have, depending on its state of evolution or whether it's current or just out of date. In terms of the templates then, whereas the strategic proposal is a narrative, it's what you're trying to do and telling the story of that to us to convince a convincing and meaningful document. The templates are more quantitative. It is data, it's numbers and it's figures. And there really are 4 key templates that we're looking for around the athletes, your athlete pools and the athlete population you have within your sport relevant to high performance. Your track record, so recent past performance, we're looking at the last 10 years within your sport. Looking specifically at Olympic, World Championship, European and Commonwealth levels. Looking at the targets that you're forecasting for your sport over the next 4 years, and looking at the investment that you believe is necessary to deliver those targets. I think probably something that's important to mention here around those templates is that we've tried to pick up the complex jurisdictional issues that many of our sports face in Northern Ireland. So we're trying to recognise that within Ulster or within Northern Ireland, you often sit as either a province or a region of a larger national programme. And we've tried to allow that within these documents. So in the case of the athletes, we want to understand who the Northern Ireland athletes you have relevant to your sport going forward, but in the context of the wider national programme. So if you're an Irish programme and there are 3 Northern Ireland athletes, we want those athletes from Northern Ireland named, but we want to understand the number of athletes you have at the various levels in your national programme, because that context is important. You may be a sport that has delivered as a UK sport or an Irish sport internationally, and you may want to put a bid in here, but you just may not have many Northern Ireland athletes competing at that level yet. But your credibility as a sport is still important because of that wider context. We're trying to pick that up here. So the templates, as I say, we're trying to get just more quantitative information through that. I'll pick up on some of that again in a second. Through the guidance documents, I think there's a few points we want to kind of reinforce and maybe pick up that are new. We can't stress enough this importance of national alignment, and again, Alan has already said it. We feel that sports are going to be competing for Ireland, Great Britain, the UK, or Northern Ireland, and therefore the relevance of those national bodies is extremely important. And we're also looking for reinforcement, because if you're competing for Ireland, we want to see the relevance of Sport Ireland's involvement in that. Same if you're a UK body, we want to see UK sports endorsement of you as a performance sport. And if you're Northern Ireland sport, it's Northern Ireland you have to deal with, dear help you. For the benefits and outcomes, this is I suppose, it's outlined within the document that there's the flow charts that identify the high level, the intermediate level benefits, and then the outcomes. They're also picked up in an appendix at the back of the document. Those are just to really clarify for sports the objectives that Sport Northern Ireland is investing towards. That's not necessarily to say that those are things you have to work towards. It is very much about what you as a sport are trying to achieve, but this is saying these are the outcomes that Sport Northern Ireland will be measuring and assessing when we go through and scoring this. So just that we're upfront in that and you understand the levels at which they sit relative to each other. Bottom line, the stretch targets are something that are picked up within this guidance for the first time. It has been a challenge in the past when sports come forward with a single submission asking for a certain amount of money to deliver X targets. And if Sport Northern Ireland can't invest the amount that is required, we recognise that the objectives you had targeted it may not be possible for you to deliver those because of that kind of decreased investment. The bottom line of stretch targets are the opportunity for a sport to put forward two scenarios. Both should be realistic and both should be ambitious, but we would recognise that you may have a level, say the bottom line target, below which you as a sport would be extremely disappointed if you did not achieve. The stretch targets then may be something that is more ambitious, but would require additional investment to do that. That's the opportunity to put forward two scenarios through this submission, so that even if you don't get the higher level investment, you get something, but you have framed your targets relative to that investment. The emerging Northern Ireland performance athletes, this was something that was picked up through the consultation process, and at that stage, the work that has gone on through talent was sitting within the sporting clubs strand of the investment. But I think the feedback from sports was that there was a potential for some confusion here, and we talked a lot internally, and we have realigned that work in talent into sporting winners, because that work is really towards the long-term development of international success within our sports, and so we think it's better here. So that is referenced within the template around athletes. It's identifying it as a level within your sports pathway. What I would say is that because it is possibly more likely or more difficult for the work that is going on at that kind of emerging level to deliver performance results within the 4-year period, it's more important that you actually, within your strategic proposal, outline what that work is to do, what the benefits are going to be for you as a sport, both within this 4-year cycle and over the longer term, because that's your opportunity to really spell that out within the document. The strategic and tactical direction, again, this is back to the strategic proposal. It does need to be a meaningful and convincing document that says what you as a sport are going to do. The facts and figures, what you forecast, will tell one part of the story, but actually how you're going to do that is something else. Now, we're not looking for operational plans and a huge amount of detail. But if you are saying that you want to, get athletes to the Olympic Games, or you want to get top 8 at the World Championships and that, giving some sense of how you're going to do that is important, because it's going to give us a sense of the viability of your project. And again, that's something new, but we hope that sports, you may have questions about it later on. The Sports Institute, I suppose service provision is something that has previously sat outside funding applications and funding submissions. We think it's extremely important because if you are looking again to achieve certain objectives and you're thinking only in financial terms, and then once you are given the level of investment, you have to go and seek your service provision elsewhere. It may be that some sports get it and other sports don't. We're trying to look holistically at your needs as a sport to deliver those performance objectives. We are looking to get a sense from sports of the service provision in terms of the finance. Because in truth, if you're not able to access the Sports Institute for your service provision, that need doesn't disappear. So we want to understand it with your wider kind of overall investment needs. So again, that might be something that some sports will be quite comfortable doing that because they are used, especially if you're a national sport, you're used to seeking out service providers and paying for that service. In other cases, it might be something that's new, but you have the opportunity through the Q&As to put that out. And again, just generally around the assessment, two key things we're going to be looking at are value and viability. The value is going to be down to what your performance objectives are, and you'll be scored around that. And that then has to be complemented by how much it's going to cost, the investment that you're seeking. If you are targeting X, Y, and Z, and you're asking for £100,000 a year to do that, that's one thing. If you then ask for £150,000 to do the same X, Y, and Z, your value is going to decrease. And I think just sports recognising that every pound more you ask for, there has to be added value to accompany it if you really want to maintain that value. The viability, we're trying to pick up in a number of ways. Strategic proposal is one, but other ways are your recent past performance. If you're a sport that's targeting World Championship medals again, and you've done it before, that's a good sense of the viability of your sport to repeat that success. If you've never done it, you need to be viable in other ways. So that could be an athlete population that has kind of increased over the last few years, or you could have a really strong strategy that is evidence-based to support that kind of more ambitious targets going forward.